All right, a happy Monday, at least for Minnesota Timberwolves fans and Indiana Pacers fans. You are on to the conference finals. We did a Denver video Sunday night after the loss. It was half-ass, to be honest. And I said, you know what? Denver fans deserve better. So we scrapped it. We never even sent it in to get edited. So let's do another video of the Denver Nuggets offseason video, which I didn't think we would have to put out on a Monday morning, especially when it was 58-38. But that is life. We started writing a Denver article when they got down 2-0 against Minnesota, when they lost both games at home. I wrote the state of the roster, and then I said, you know what? Let's just pause because things might get a little funky in this series. And sure enough, Denver comes back up 3-2. We write the Minnesota article, which will come out whenever their fate is determined. Maybe it won't be determined. And then we wrote the Denver article again over the weekend when they lost Game 6. So here we go with Denver. I would say it would be naive to think that the championship window for the Denver Nuggets has closed, especially when you have the reigning MVP, three-time MVP Nikola Jokic on your roster for the next 4 years. Okay? I'll put that out there. You have your core of your roster is under contract next year, but there's going to be some questions here. Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Kentavious Cole-Pope has a player option. Your starting five during the regular season did something only the Boston Celtics of the 07, 08, and 08, 09 Celtics led the league in point differential in consecutive seasons. However, that same starting five in the postseason were in the red. There was a negative. We saw it in the Lakers series, and we certainly saw it in Game 6 and Game 7, Games 1 and 2 also with the Minnesota series here. So what was great in the regular season wasn't as great in the postseason. And that now leads to what's next, right? We always do a what's next. Doesn't matter if you're 57-25 and you're the number 2 seed in the playoffs here and you lose in the first round, there's always going to be a next. Last year, the what next was, can we afford Bruce Brown? Which you couldn't because you had non-bird rights. Do we bring back Jeff Green? You could have. You elected not to. Let's make a conservative effort on our bench, which would be our young players, draft, develop. Peyton Watson turns into a different role. Christian Brown in year 2. We went out and got 3 players in the draft that eventually could help. At the end of the day, really the only person we saw in the playoffs was Christian Brown here. The role of Peyton Watson we saw in the regular season had been diminished, and now that leads to questions that starts with your starting five outside of Jokic. You have a decision to make on Jamal Murray, who's extension eligible. We'll go into that in a minute. You have a decision on Aaron Gordon, who is extension eligible starting in late September. Kentavious Cole-Pope has a player option that he has to decide by June 29th to become a free agent. And of course, you have Michael Porter Jr. sitting on a max contract and is a good player, but let's face it, is not a max player. And I've been waiting for people to start talking about that. So you can get away with 3 players on max contracts when you're winning an NBA championship. When you lose in the manner that Denver did in Game 7, and Porter Jr. has 7 points, and there were good moments for him, and there have been good moments for him, then it starts to get questioned as far as, is he a max contract? Can we split that contract up? Can we go in a different direction? And I think you're starting to see that there. That's for Calvin Booth, their general manager, to figure out. For me, I think it's you running this group back with the hope that you can sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, because I do think the body of work as far as what they've shown and what they showed up until the 9-minute mark in the third quarter, what is championship worthy here. There's going to be a patience test for Calvin Booth and head coach Michael Malone this offseason as it relates to their bench. As I said, they've made an effort to prioritize the builder bench through the draft because of the apron restrictions and where they are in the luxury tax and the inability to add outside of their own roster unless it's Justin Holiday on a minimum contract or DeAndre Jordan, guys who are on minimum contract. They had to use the tax mid-level on Reggie Jackson last year, who was also a free agent here. We'll talk about him in a minute. So here's your patience test. Do you continually rely on your youth, your former draft picks, your picks, hoping maybe Jalen Pickett, for example, replaces Reggie Jackson, or Julian Strawther replaces Justin Holiday in the rotation, and hopefully year 3 of Peyton Watson, when we haven't even Zeke Najee's in the is in the witness protection program. We haven't seen him since he signed that extension. The patience comes with certainly the pressure of we are a win now team. We need to flip some of these young players for more established players coming off their bench, and that is going to be the patience and how the relationship between Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, the working relationship as far as how to balance that there. Because this roster, as I said, is expensive. It is a second apron team. They are limited as far as how they can add outside of retaining their own players. They do have the 28th pick in the draft, and that will lead to discussion as far as, do you move that for a player? Do you move it for another draft pick? So you're limited as far as what you have. You owe Orlando a protected first in 25. You owe Oklahoma City a protected first in 2 years after. And then you owe Oklahoma City another protected first 2 years after that. So you are limited as far as what you have in draft capital. As I said, for right now, Denver is a first apron team until July 1st. Okay? So what does that mean? Yes, you can still aggregate contracts, but if KCP opts in or signs for another salary, maybe larger, the second apron restriction is now triggered. So now you have to basically trade away players. So technically you could say they're acting as a second apron team right now as far as what the limitations are, the inability to send cash out in a trade, aggregating contracts, taking back more money, trade exceptions not available here. They roughly have $193 million in contracts next year if KCP and Reggie Jackson opt in. KCP has June 29th, Reggie Jackson June 25th to opt into his $5.3 million contract. If both players leave and go somewhere else, you are still likely a luxury tax team. But you do have a little bit of flexibility to maybe use part of your $12.9 million non-tax mid-level exception. Just because those players leave and $20 million in salary goes off doesn't mean you have $20 million to replace each other. You just have a little bit more flexibility maybe in a trade to work around that. As far as your priorities, certainly KCP is a priority for you. He's got that player option. As I said, it's roughly 14. I want to say it's 15 and change. Hold on one second. Just patience with me. I probably should know that by heart. KCP has a $15.4 million player option. Reggie Jackson is at 5.3. One of the best lockdown defenders in the NBA, although he's getting up there in age a little bit. 96% of regular season games played since 2013-14. Durability matters. You can count on him. He's going to be there. Now the question comes down to what's the cost? Is it more than the $15 million that he's for the player option? Philadelphia, Orlando, OKC, Utah, San Antonio, all with maybe Toronto, all with teams that have potential cap space. Does it make sense for Philadelphia to go in and basically split up that money with him and Miles Bridges, players like that? So I do think KCP is a priority unless you think Christian Brown is your starter for the foreseeable future. Remember what I said, Just because you lose him doesn't mean you replace him with a $15 million player. And then there's Reggie Jackson, who's got a $5.3 million player option. Where are you as far as with your youth to replace him? Basically, you would have the veteran minimum, and as I said, kind of Jalen Pickett as your replacement here. He's got early bird rights. Jamal Murray, extension candidates to watch. He is eligible for the Donovan Mitchell 4 years, $208.5 million extension. If I was Jamal Murray and that extension was offered to me, I would take it. I would sign it. I would not wait until the 2025 offseason when I can become an unrestricted free agent with the belief I will earn All-NBA. Has never made All-NBA and has never made the All-Star game. And based on his questions of durability, how can you guarantee Jamal Murray playing 65 games next year? So if it was Murray and I was advising him, I would tell him to take that offer. And then there is Aaron Gordon, who's eligible on September 27th, 4 years, $149.5 million. He's got a player option for next year. One of the better contracts in the NBA. It's $23.8 million player option. That is a decision that Denver is going to have to make towards the end of September. Certainly, the team needs a big step in development of their young players, and then replacements for maybe KCP, Jackson, and Holiday, of all three leaving free agency. Denver is in a good spot. It's a lot different than it was a year ago when you win a championship. Now there are questions, right? There are questions with their starting lineup, not as far as how good they can be, but can you retain the core parts of it? And I think it certainly starts with Kentavious Cole-Pope. We will talk soon. Hope you have a great day.